In the third week of lockdown, the city had fallen into an almost
natural silence. With people confined to their homes, the streets were empty, the lights dim, and even the wind seemed to move in a more unsettling way. 35-year-old Adrian Clark lived alone in his small apartment. His days were filled with news broadcasts, emails, and the oppressive weight of the quiet. But recently, the silence itself had become the least of his concerns because the things he heard were far more disturbing. The first incident happened 3 nights earlier. Shortly after midnight, he heard a door slam from the floor below. It could have been normal under ordinary circumstances, but most residents had left the building during lockdown. The apartment downstairs had been empty for months. Adrian paused and listened. Just as he returned to bed, silent, the sound came again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it sounded like it came from inside the wall. Not rhythmic, more like someone cautiously testing the surface with the tips of their fingers. A shudder crawled through him. Still, he tried to rationalize it. Old building, pipes, maybe the wind. But the next night, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the sound returned. A new element joined in a whisper, as if 2 people were arguing softly. He couldn't make out words, but the tone was sharp and tense. Adrian cracked his door open and looked into the hallway. The building was completely dark. Even the emergency exit light seemed to glow weaker than usual. He leaned toward the staircase. Yes, the sound was coming from downstairs, from the empty apartment. A part of him demanded he go back inside, but curiosity drowned out caution. He descended the stairs on his toes, slow and silent. As he approached the lower floor, the whispering stopped. Instantly, as if it had noticed him listening, the hair on the back of his neck stood on end. The downstairs hallway was noticeably darker. The door of the empty apartment was shut, yet a faint light flickered underneath it like a candle flame struggling against the dark. Adrian's heartbeat quickened. Just as he decided to turn back, a voice came from inside. "You're late." Adrian froze. The voice belonged neither to a man nor a woman, muffled, echoing, and somehow not quite human. The doorknob began to turn. Adrian sprinted up the stairs, legs trembling. He slammed his own door shut behind him, but the silence didn't last long. This time, the sound came from directly behind his front door. Tap, tap, tap. Adrian lockdown meant he couldn't leave the apartment, but staying inside suddenly felt far more dangerous.
Adrian tried to convince himself that the voice whispering his name behind the door couldn't be real. For a moment, he blamed it on ringing ears, on stress, on exhaustion. But it came again, closer this time. "Adrian," the whisper stretched out, slipping through the cracks of the door. Adrian backed away until his shoulders hit the wall. His breathing was sharp and uneven. He reached for his phone. Calling the police crossed his mind. But during lockdown, only health emergencies were prioritized. Besides, how would he even explain it? There's a voice coming from an empty apartment, and something whispering at my door. Would anyone believe him? As he tried to steady his feet, another sound broke through the silence. Not a whisper, something softer, but unmistakable. Breathing, slow, patient, coming from right behind the door. Adrian's throat tightened, gathering a moment of courage. He leaned toward the peephole. Nothing but darkness. The stairwell wasn't visible. Even the emergency lights seemed deliberately dimmed. Just as he started to pull back, something appeared at eye level. An eye. It resembled a human eye, yet it was entirely black, no iris, no whites, just a hollow point of darkness. And it widened, as if noticing Adrian staring back. Adrian held his breath, but couldn't move. The eye remained there, perfectly still, just watching. Then a voice came through the peephole, muffled, hollow, echoing. "Open." Adrian stumbled backward in terror, knocking over a chair. The doorknob twitched once more, but didn't turn fully, as if whatever was outside was waiting for Adrian to willingly open it. Trying to persuade him, he ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife. His hands trembled so violently that he nearly dropped it. He didn't approach the door for several minutes. The building fell silent again, but this silence felt worse, as if the entire structure was holding its breath. Hours passed. As Adrian tried to rest his eyes on the couch, A sharp static noise startled him. The television had turned on by itself. The screen was entirely black. Then an image slowly emerged. The camera angle was familiar. The hallway, his front door, and the dark silhouette standing inches away from it, turning its head slowly toward the camera. Adrian's phone buzzed suddenly, vibrating across the table. One message appeared on the screen. "Why didn't you open the door?"
After reading the message on his phone, Adrian's hands went numb. "Why didn't you open the door?" Then he noticed something. There was no number listed as the sender. It was as if the message had come from inside. He turned off the phone and stared at his own reflection on the dark screen. Nothing about this made sense. It had to be a nightmare, but nightmares didn't make people shiver like this. The cold crawling up his spine was far too real. After a while, the sound behind the door stopped. No whisper, no breathing, nothing. The silence was even worse. He slowly moved around the apartment, trying to calm his nerves. He looked out the window, deserted streets, gray sky, faint wind. Lockdown had turned the city into a tomb. Then a sound echoed from downstairs. Bam! A door slammed violently. This time closer. From the empty apartment, Adrian's instincts screamed, "Don't go." But fear and curiosity pulled him downward like a rope round his chest. He grabbed the knife again and cracked open his door. The hallway was empty, lights flickering weakly. He stepped toward the stairs. Each wooden board creaked beneath his weight. On the lower floor, the air felt colder. The door of the empty apartment was half open. Earlier, it had been shut tight. The narrow gap revealed a void of darkness. No lights, no movement. But something was in there, something that felt aware of him, as if the walls themselves were breathing. When Adrian stepped closer, a faint clicking sound emerged from within. Then another, a dragging sound. Slow, heavy, something sliding across the floor. Adrian swallowed hard, unable to speak. He tightened his grip on the knife. When he touched the door to push it open a little more, something inside struck it suddenly. Bam! The door slammed forward, inches from his face, but stopped before closing completely, as if something inside had pushed it just to warn him. Adrian stumbled backward, heart pounding violently. Then from deep within the darkness, a voice rose. This place was never empty. As Adrian backed away, the stairway lights began to shut off one by one, and footsteps started moving toward the upper floor. Footsteps that didn't belong to him. It was the third week of quarantine. Jonathan had completely lost his sense of time, drifting through the heavy fog of long, identical days. The creaks echoing from every corner of the house had become a part of his routine. But he kept trying to convince himself that most of the noises weren't real. It was just past midnight. Rain tapped against the windows, and the orange glow of a street lamp spilled faintly into the living room. Jonathan set down his cold tea and leaned toward the window. The street outside was utterly empty. Quarantine rules allowed nothing else. But even in an empty street, something felt wrong. His eyes caught something at the edge of the window. On the fogged-up glass, there appeared a round imprint of breath, as if someone had exhaled onto it from outside. Jonathan stepped back in shock. The breath mark looked like it came from the outside, impossible, since he lived on the third floor, and the rain droplets slid around the breath mark without ever washing it away. Jonathan approached the window with a trembling hand. He knew there was no logical explanation for this. Just as his finger hovered over the mist, a thin scratch appeared right in the center of the breath imprint, as if someone was scratching the outside of the glass. Jonathan stumbled backward. The air in the room grew heavy. From the hallway came the sound of a door creaking open. Jonathan turned his head, but the darkness revealed nothing. His heart hammered in his chest. As he took a step, the window fogged up again. This time, multiple breath circles emerged, 4, then 6, then 8. As if several people were breathing onto the glass at once. Jonathan squinted at the darkness outside. Between the breath marks, he noticed movement, a vague shadow behind the glass. The shadow leaned forward slowly. Jonathan's blood turned cold, because now, on the outside of the glass, a sentence began to appear, written through the moisture. "Can I come in?" The words stood clearly despite the flowing rain. Jonathan stepped back, tripping on the table leg. The door creak from the hallway came again, this time much closer. Someone, or something, was inside the house, moving slowly, heavily, getting closer to Jonathan. Jonathan held his breath as he looked at the window one last time. A second line was being written beneath the first. "I'm already inside." Jonathan stared blankly at the message on the window. While the footsteps behind him were no longer distant, they were right there, inches away in the dark. He took a deep breath to steady himself, but the breath he heard wasn't his. A cold draft brushed the back of his neck. It felt as though someone was leaning close, breathing against his skin. Jonathan spun around. No one. The dim light made the walls seem tight, as if something unseen was moving between them. Another door creaked open down the hallway. The door he never opened. The small storage closet where he kept old belongings before the quarantine. Jonathan approached slowly. A faint shadow moved into the door. As he reached for the handle, a whisper slipped through the crack. "Found. You?" Jonathan recoiled. The whisper was so close it felt like it touched his ear, yet no one stood there. A soft scratching followed, like something clawing at the walls from inside. Then the lights flickered, darkness swallowed the hallway, and the door creaked open by itself. A freezing air spilled out. Jonathan looked inside. The storage room was completely empty. Every object he had put there was gone. On the floor, only one thing remained: 2 muddy footprints. Not one pair, for pairs, 8 pairs, all of them facing outward, as if something or many somethings had been leaving the room for a long time. Jonathan stepped back. The door slammed shut with a bang. The same voice from the window whispered in the dark, "I never left you." Panic rising, Jonathan ran through the hallway, into the living room, into the kitchen, but wherever he went, the footsteps followed. Something was moving quickly through the house, hunting him. He rushed into the bedroom and slammed the door, pressing his back against it. But the breathing wasn't behind the door, it was inside the room. Jonathan slowly turned his head. One of the shadows took shape, human-like but not human. And in that moment, Jonathan finally understood. The thing breathing on the window had never been outside. It had always been inside the house. Since the first days of quarantine, feeding on his fear, feeding on his loneliness. The shadow reached for him. The light died out. A final whisper filled the darkness. "You're not alone anymore." And the house fell silent.